Welcome, everybody, to the Bison Video Blog with Jeff Kolpak. I'm Dom Izzo on a newsy Monday as North Dakota State prepares for its second road game of the season, a trip to the state of Tennessee for the first time in program history, which we'll visit about that in a second. As we were visiting on Hot Mic earlier today, for the first time in a while, we're talking about a Bison football incident off the field from the story that was reported on Sunday for former now redshirt freshman linebacker Jaiden Pickett, who was arrested and charged with 3 felonies, including firing a gun inside a house. The program announced this morning that Pickett, Jeff, has been dismissed from the team. For the highly touted young man out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who finally got his first opportunity to play on Saturday. I mentioned this. Thankfully, no one was injured, but this is the first time in a while we're talking about something off the field.
Well, we think since probably a backup wide receiver in the playoff run of 2018 in December was probably the last time. And notable player. I mean, there could be freshmen here and there that got booted and we probably wouldn't know about it. But why is he notable? Well, he's a 2-star recruit, Dom. He was highly recruited. He had offers from South Dakota State, Northern Iowa, North Dakota, Illinois State, all-state guy in Wisconsin. And so, I mean, I think he was obviously had some talent and was trying to work his way up the depth chart. Tough spot to work your way up the depth chart at linebacker at NDSU right now. But now I was surprised. I mean, because it just hasn't happened very often. I mean, since Craig Bohl really turned things around on the off-the-field issues after 2009.
Because there's a stretch where we were doing this almost every Monday, coming in and checking on what was going on about 15, 16 years ago.
And, right, and that was 2009. And then, like we said, that was a time where you and I would check the arrest logs on Monday morning. Okay, what's next here? And how did Craig change it? Here's how he changed it. He told his assistant coaches and said, okay, here's what you need to do. You could talk to the coach, that's fine. But every Division I coach is going to want to pump their guy up because they want him going Division I. So just don't take the coach's word for it. Go talk to the secretary. Go talk to the janitor in the room. Go talk to other students. Go talk to people who we sit on Hot Mic don't have necessarily a dog in the fight on this recruit. And that's what they started doing. Tim Polasek was part of that staff. And so, and obviously, I think the results speak for themselves. Yeah, they've had issues here and there, but certainly hasn't been widespread like it was in 2009.
Does this linger, do you think? Is this thing that will manifest itself throughout the week or no?
I don't think so. I think teams lose players to injury and they move on. Teams move on. And I think that honestly it's Monday. I bet by the end of the day today, if they haven't moved on already, this guy, it's not like he was a starting quarterback.
No.
It's not like he was a part of the game plan in any way, shape, or form coming up this week. So, no, kids are resilient. It's not going to affect the team at all.
Especially with such a senior and experience-laden team that the Bison have, I have to imagine they're going to, I think, close ranks on this pretty fast, Jeff, to say, okay, there's no more of this. I have to imagine that the team will do that going forward.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure the coaching staff already has announced it and say, hey, guys, watch yourself. Well, you got to watch yourself. When you're a Bison player and you sign up on the dotted line to say you're playing Division I football at NDSU, it comes with a deal. If you do something bad off the field, we're going to report about it. Again, you and I, we don't care. Dom and I don't care what Bison players do off the field, but when it becomes a public record and an arrest warrant and you're in jail, and then it becomes our business.
Right, and it's going to get reported on. And I believe that's been discussed. The most recent recruiting classes have been told about what kind of spotlight you have. If you're a North Dakota State football player, when you arrive in town, it's a different beast than it is anything else around here. It really is.
If you're a player at Alabama, it's a different beast. USC, different beast. Notre Dame, it's no different. The attention, and there's no pro team here in Fargo last I checked.
There's no doubt.
And so you are the show here. UND hockey the same way. When you sign up at UND to play hockey in Grand Forks, there comes a deal. And if you get your name on a rest sheet, then it's a story.
It's going to be front page news, and it was, and it still is right now. The Bison will play their second road game this coming week against a Southern Conference team, a SoCon. I haven't had many trips on the SoCon. Georgia Southern's the only one that comes to mind. Of course, they've moved on. As East Tennessee State is up. This game was signed a couple of years ago after the Bison beat the Buccaneers in the 2021 playoffs, which we'll get to in a minute here. The game that the Bison beat East Tennessee State 27-3 that day. This year's team is 1-1. They have a new head coach, Trey Lamb, who is the former Gardner-Webb head coach. They led the Running Bulldogs, as you know where they're at, to the Big South Conference Championship each of the last couple of years. They lost their opener to Appalachian State. They won this past week over Division II Virginia Wise. So it's really hard to get a gauge here, Jeff. They played an FBS team and then played a D2 team, but I'm intrigued just alone. This is a new area of the country the Bison are going to against a team that's still trying to figure its way out.
Welcome to the no FBS game era, because you have to try to find home games now, Dom. Yeah, they had an FBS game in Colorado. I get that. But the next one isn't until, Oregon in 2028. Yep. Hopefully that goes off. But this is how you have to schedule now. You have to find home and homes. You go to the Citadel. You go to East Tennessee State. You try to find some matchups within the FCS that maybe would be intriguing games, I think, to your program.
This team, East Tennessee State, different quarterback. It's a completely different roster than it was from 2021. And that's the intriguing part about this. In a stadium that is, I wouldn't say it's not huge. It's not small either. All of this is new. That's why I'm excited about this trip, to see how the Bison perform, going to a spot of the country they've never been to before.
The only thing I know about Johnson City is it's in a song, right? It's in a song by, I can't remember who it is, but it's a popular song. One thing about covering Bison football since the Division I era started, and you've been a large part of this, is seeing different parts of the country. We were at Georgia Southern, been to Texas, been to Cal Poly, been to Cal Davis, been to all these places. And it's a pretty cool ride, and I think the players probably are going to enjoy this, and they're going to get on a plane Friday and go play a game in an area. I'm curious to see what kind of crowd East Tennessee State has, because you're bringing in one of the top dogs in FCS football.
So the capacity of William B. Green Jr. Stadium is just under 7,700. So it's not a big stadium, but this is their
chance. Yeah, this is their chance to have a great environment.
Some people there. It's a later kickoff. It's a 5:30 Eastern time, because we're going to be the Eastern time zone, 4:30 Central time. And I remember we did this story when they came up here in 2021. This football program is only 8 years old of being reborn. They had it, then it was shut down for a few decades, and now it's been back since 2016. No other way to get yourself on the map than schedule North Dakota State.
Well, Johnson City's not small either. What's 125,000 people? Yep. So it's not like it's it's some town in the remote area that like a town of 10,000 or some of these college towns we've seen over the years. It's a pretty large area. I'm guessing it's a pretty vibrant area. It's it's as far east of Tennessee
as you can go. You're basically in North Carolina, right next door.
I just think it's it's a good time for the Bison again to, I think, grow together as a team. When you hit the road in a place like this, it's just you and that's it.
Listen to this. This is they've signed up for their non-conference wise. I mentioned App State. They play Murray, which makes sense. That's a clear. And the Bison are going to Murray this year. At Tennessee next year. West Georgia's new to FCS and Elon. They come to Fargo in 26. At North Carolina and West. I mean, those are games that, especially in that part of the country, you kind of crave to get. They're going to play some teams that are pretty good.
Well, I think getting FBS games is probably a little easier for
them.
There's
no doubt on that.
And especially being in the league they are. The SoCon hasn't really been a national power in recent years, since the likes of Georgia Southern and Wofford isn't as good as they were. And so it's I think it's I'm curious to see what the whole program's like.
And that's something we'll talk about as the week goes on the SoCon, because it's certainly a changing of the guard when we knew with Georgia Southern and App State, and when Wofford was really good. Wofford's struggling. Furman had a great year last year, but they're probably going to trend back. Mercer's in that league now, and they think that they have something. Chattanooga thinks they've got a pretty good team.
And they were good for a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Western Carolina had a team last year that thought they could make the FCS playoffs. It's a league in flux is the best way. And ETSU is hoping to gain some momentum here and challenge in this conference.
Well, I think getting a game like NDSU is a great way to do it. I mean, you're scheduling one of the obviously top programs in the country. So if you continue to do that, I think you see what – and if they pull off and if they win this game against the Bison, boy, that just throws you into a top 10 level right now.
I'd say for NDSU, before we wrap, this part of this non-conference – Colorado was what it was. These three games, Tennessee State, ETSU, and then Towson next week. Again, I think you're going to see a bunch more young players play to see what they have to get ready for conference play.
Well, these young players, I think, were impressive last weekend. And we mentioned this before. that in other years when you put the backups in the second half, there was a certain noticeable drop off. I didn't detect that really this time. I mean, those defensive players that were in the second half were pretty good. I mean, they closed gaps. Donovan Woolen, I think a linebacker, might get a shot to play right away. He looks the part, 6'4". Man, did he close fast too.
He looked really impressive. That's a guy that you may just pull the red shirt and say, hey, you're going to play every game this season. Goes to the whole new theory of where we are in the portal. Reminder, Tim Polasek press conference comes your way 1:30 tomorrow. You'll see it live on WDAY Extra and WDAY Plus. We'll be in Johnson City. Bison Game Day is live at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. And note the start time. The game is at 4:30 between the Bison and the Buccaneers as NDSU makes its first trip to the state of Tennessee as a football program.
Wagon Wheel, Dom. That's the song. Wagon Wheel. I just remembered.
He got it before the end of the video blog. I knew if Kolpak would pick it up. For Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. That's this week's Bison Video Blog.